What's up guys, Matt Horspool here, and today we're going to be going through the BTS footage of the portrait shoot that I did with the OM-1 that was released about a week ago. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen that yet, I'll leave a link up in the description. But thank you for all of the amazing support and lovely feedback and comments you've given me on that review, because it took a bloody long time to get done. Probably will never do one in detail as that again. There have been a lot of people asking about portrait photography and how the autofocus works with the camera. Now I know OM System have been kind of marketing this camera more towards the adventure, outdoor travel, wildlife kind of realm, but it still does have amazing face and eye detection, and people do want to use that as a kind of portrait camera or a hybrid camera that can kind of do everything, which is how I shoot. So as I mentioned in the review, I took the camera on a portrait shoot, a dedicated portrait shoot, and I really wanted to get some terrible weather kind of portraits that were really kind of, lack of a better word, moody, that had some really dramatic light. The rain was terrible, the forecast was terrible all week, and I nearly called it off because really no model wants to be out in that kind of weather. But I messaged Lisa and she said, let's go do it, let's get this done. So with her can-do attitude, we met up and we ended up having some of the most dramatic and beautiful light that I've ever seen on a sunset in Sydney. So kudos to Lisa for coming out and helping me out with that. So we did take the OM-1 and I shot with lenses like the 17mm f1.2, the 12 to 40mm f2.8, just the Mark 1, and the 45mm f1.2. I've never shot portraits before with the 12 to 40, so it's kind of new, but I do like the 24mm, giving that bit of extra width to my shots. I normally shoot with the Pro Prime, so decided to mix it up. James came along, my trusty BTS shooter, and filmed everything on another OM-1 using a mixture of the 17mm 1.2 and the 12 to 40. We kind of interchanged, but as you'll see as we go along, the weather was terrible, the wind was terrible, the sea spray was also terrible, so we try not to change lenses too much. I'm trying not to talk too much throughout it. I did have a lav on to start with, so describing what was happening, but, sorry, hit the microphone. But the wind became way too strong, so I ended up just ditching the lav, and you're just going to hear me kind of talk a little bit about my thought process and what was happening and how the autofocus was working, my kind of settings that I was using at that stage. But by and large, I'll try not to talk too much, so you can just let the images do the talking for you. But by and large, I love this camera. I love the sensor. I love the autofocus and face and eye detection. It just works brilliantly, never missed a beat the whole time. So I also have used as you'll see in the editing, I did use my new portrait presets, so they'll be also available in the link below. But anyway, let's get to it. So I'll just get you to, when you get out to the rock, you're going to walk out towards the beach. We'll do one walking out with your hand on your head like that, and letting the wind blow, and then one walking back the same. And then I'll do the same thing as you're taking the hat off and let your hair blow, and then same walking back. Already out on that rock. Legs apart a bit, and then turn around and look at the camera. Now I had planned on filming quite a bit more video during this session, but we just got kind of carried away with the stills. So there are a sprinkling of clips like this one shot on the OM-1 between myself and James in H.265. I can't even remember what lens I was using because we were swapping them out quite a bit. So they're a bit of a mismatched random shots. A bit cliche with Lisa's hair just blowing in the wind, but you can see kind of what the footage looks like. 4K straight out of the camera, minimal grading applied to it, and I think it looks pretty beautiful. Dynamic range is alright, except when you're shooting backlit, as you can see in some of the clips that the sky has been blown out, but by and large it's not too bad. So you can see from these shots I was actually shooting behind a lot of foliage and had the autofocus set to wide, and it still found Lisa's face and eyes perfectly, which is pretty amazing. So in this next little section I'm going to show you my kind of process on using multiple exposures in camera. So a lot of the Olympus cameras have this feature called multiple exposure, where you can take two photos and it'll blend them together inside the camera and spit them out as a raw file. Now, I love shooting these kinds of things. I shoot them in my wedding photography, and I think they're really adding quite a nice dimension and something really unique that you don't actually have to do in post. The camera does it all for you, which I think is amazing. So you take two images. You take a background image and you take, I guess like a main subject image or whatever you really want. In the camera, you take one photo and then it'll actually show you an overlay imprinted, kind of an opaque image over the screen, and then you just reposition it and take the second photo and it'll blend them together. Now, they take a little bit of conceptualization, I guess, and a bit of trial and error to get the right shots, and you'll see that it took me a few goes, especially because at least my terrible explanation to Lisa kind of confused her, but once she saw it in the camera, as you will see as well, then she could understand kind of what I was doing. So when you do see a lot of these images, they're kind of the same, but a little bit different. It's because we're doing a lot of trial and error, trying to get the shots. But by and large, I think they turned out really well.
And it layers them over and boosts the gain up to make it look like they're made together. So what I want to do is a shot of you with the sun like hitting the side of your, like probably like here. You're just getting a bit of the sun there, and your arms up like this, so nice and straight, yep. And then the next layer I'm going to do is you're going to do you facing the other way, and you're going to frame it back to back. So there'll be a blend of both of you facing the other way with the light, ideally. Can you get your arms behind your head a bit more? Yeah.
Oh, you have something in your eyes of power, and I can't deny I love it. There are no limits for us, so we come
Down this time, and then looking over your shot. There, that's perfect.
so high, make it feel so high, make it feel.
Oh, so cool. So cool. Okay.
Maybe I'll do portrait as well, it might be a bit better. Standard shot of her, and then whatever I take a photo of afterwards, it's going to layer it over.
So it was here that we actually stopped recording any voice over audio because the weather and the wind was just shocking. So this is where I'll kind of have to do a bit of a voiceover and tell you what was happening. You'll see here that I don't use the EVF, even though it's a beautiful new EVF. I kind of never really use the EVF anymore. I prefer to use the LCD because it gives me a bit of peripheral vision and make sure that I'm not going to trip over things. I can frame up my shots a lot easier. I do use the EVF sometimes, but in situations like this, as you see where it's a bit dangerous on the rocks, I don't. So in this shot here, I was trying to do a live ND. I had this idea that I would have Lisa's arms moving in kind of a staggered position, like almost like a peacock's tail. However, I had the ND on, probably not strong enough, and we were moving a little too quickly. So I still think the image came out quite cool, but not exactly what I was after.
Sorry, one more step. Yeah. And all that light. 3, 2, 1, go.
And then this happened.
Stay more to your left. Yeah, sick.
The most amazing rainbow out in the ocean appeared, and it just made for just such the most amazing photos. We really didn't have any time to set up where we were going to shoot this. The light was perfect on Lisa's face. The rainbow in the background. It was super windy, but I had the autofocus on wide and
you didn't lie when you said you were bringing the rainbows.
It just snapped on every single time, so I didn't miss any of the shots, which again was pretty amazing. You see the rich colors that are coming out of this 10-bit footage is just so nice to use now, and this was 4K 60. So at this stage, the rain started to bucket down. It's actually very difficult to tell in these photos, but it was blowing and you can see this huge cloud coming. So we didn't have much time, but the wind was amazing. And obviously Lisa's outfit just matched perfectly. So one of my favorite shots is about to come up here. Using the 12mm, getting nice and wide, really accentuating that movement of her jacket. And again, onto the beach, I was tossing up whether to do these shots because it was so cold and windy, but Lisa said, no, let's go and do it. So again, absolute trooper. And it was a bit of fun running around in the water. Again, set everything to burst and face tracking, and the camera again didn't miss a beat. It was getting absolutely hammered with sea spray. You'll see a lot of the shots coming up that I'll be just wiping it constantly. And you'll also see in James's, in the BTS video as well, a bit of a haze. That wasn't anything, no filters, it was actually just sea spray on the front of the lens. I was just really enjoying using the 12-40, just being so versatile. Yes, it's 2.8. Well, in full frame terms, it's a 5.6. It's far from that f1.2 of a full frame look, but really it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. It's having a versatile small lens that is weather sealed like this. You can see it's rendering skin and colors and the resolution beautifully, so it really doesn't ever bother me. And when I do use the primes, the f1.2, I get that bit of extra depth, which you'll see again later on. Again, here we're trying to use the multiple exposure and having a bit of a play around, and Lisa knew kind of what I wanted this time, so it worked out well. for all of these video shots, I had the IBIS just turned on in body, just sensor, not digital as well. Doesn't need it. I don't think I needed to use that extra stabilization, and I didn't really want to have that extra crop. You can see again, beautiful colors. Camera was getting absolutely drenched here. Lisa was actually kicking full on water on it. Didn't miss a beat. I didn't have to rinse it off under the tap after we got home to get some of that sea spray off though. I mean, a camera that has amazing IBIS means you can run around like this and get pretty stable shots. Previous cameras, scenes like this with super high contrast backlit, boosting the shadows up is where you actually, the image will start to fall apart, especially on that 8-bit footage. But here, I know there's a lot of sea spray on the front of James's lens, but which makes it difficult to see, but you could actually bring that up in post quite a bit, and the noise was well controlled. So for a lot of these shots, I actually set my exposure meter into center point, because often with portraits, the model's face is going to be in the center of the frame, so it actually takes that metering from there. But as you can see, the dynamic range is fine. I've got plenty of detail in the shadows, and the highlights are not blown out at all, except right at the sun. So pretty amazing. So as you'll see here in these next shots, I'd actually planned for about 40 minutes worth of shooting during dusk and night, using these cool little lights I got from Explorer, the Aura RGBs. These little lights are amazing. I've used multiple different LED panels like this, but these just work so much better. I'm using one right here actually. But yeah, we wanted to do some creative portraits using these lights, but also boost up the ISO range of the camera and see how well it controlled noise in the shadows. So some of these shots were shot at ISO 4000 and I could bring it up quite nicely. Still is some noise in the shadows, but it's well controlled. Again, I think it looks a little bit more grain-like. The color noise is controlled a lot better, and even just with normal Lightroom noise reduction, it works quite well. Add that with Topaz and it pretty much eliminates it. And you'll see here, these are some of the, again, multiple exposures. I didn't have enough city bokeh to layer over, so I just had to use the lights from the surrounding suburbs. So I thought I'd throw in as well a few extra shots here of the images straight out of camera in JPEG Natural. You see that it does a really nice job on the skin and the colors. It's not too overly vivid. So very much usable in nice light that you can use straight out of camera if a client wanted, or you don't feel like processing raw.
You couldn't be honest. You couldn't be honest. You couldn't be.
And that about wraps it up. Massive thanks again to Lisa and James for helping me out on this. Go give them a follow. And remember, if you're interested in these presets, they'll be also in a link in the description below. Until next time, out of here.